Okay, so that's 11 of you. Can't remember how many of you there are. Are there 13 of you? Is that correct? Hang on. Wait, I can't hear you. Sorry, guys. Let me turn my volume up. Are there 13 of you? Anybody?
Sure. 15.
15. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, that's 12 of you. I haven't got a message from, I don't think, anybody who's not joining. Let me just check.
We're missing a few still.
Yeah, I'm missing a few. Just trying to see. Haven't got a message from anybody saying they're not coming. No. Okay. Who said that? We approve of the word tiny. A tiny bit of work for you guys. I love that. That's cute. Okay, you'll see what I mean. All right, let me get started anyway, and we can just go with the flow, and whoever joins can just join in. Okay, so this afternoon we are going to touch a little bit more on what we chatted about last week, which was modern vinyasa. Unfortunately, it's not a lot of movement for you guys. You will have a tiny bit, but not much. And it's maybe not even, I don't know, might not even be a challenge for you guys. So let's just see how we go. But what I would like to discuss today is basically what happens at the yoga studios when it comes to teaching vinyasa, how it works when you approach the studios, what happens when you get a job there, and all that kind of thing. And then I also want to maybe give you some ideas as to how you can differentiate yourself or stick out or from all the other vinyasa yoga teachers, because there are so many. So is there anything that you can do that can make your classes a little bit more rewarding, a little bit more interesting, so that you can get people that want to come and do your classes? Okay, so we'll just touch on a few of those things. I also want to go through some of the transitions that we went through last week, because we went through them very, very quickly. So we'll look at those again. And we'll just break those down, and then I'll give you a little exercise to do, which is not complicated. I'm sure you can figure some stuff out yourself. And then if you guys have any questions, we can work on that. Okay, so I don't think it's going to be a long session today. Okay, so I've just got a message from Catherine to say you guys are inundated with theory. So I would have put a little bit more practical in if I had known. But anyway, it's not, this isn't an intense session. It's just a little bit of info, a little bit of chatting, and let's just see how we go. Okay, so I wanted to start with just telling you how you could possibly get a job working as a vinyasa teacher at a yoga studio, because it's quite difficult. There are so many vinyasa teachers out there. So I when I did my first teacher training course, we covered vinyasa yoga, ashtanga, and hot 26. So when I walked out of that course, we were qualified to teach all three. Okay. I didn't get a job at a yoga studio teaching as a vinyasa teacher. I approached the owner of the studio where we had done the course, which was Yo Yoga, which was in Claremont. And I said to him, I live around the corner. So if you need anybody for a sub, I'm 2 minutes away. Just keep me in mind if you ever need anybody. So he said, fantastic. And it wasn't long before I was called on to come and sub, but it was not for vinyasa, it was for hot 26. So I basically started teaching hot 26, and there were no vinyasa spots open at any of the studios. And I approached a lot of the studios. I sent them emails, and unfortunately the feedback wasn't that good. There wasn't a lot of stuff out there available. So I started teaching hot 26 at Yo Yoga, and I did that for a couple of months. And then somebody couldn't teach at one of the Yoga Spirit in Constantia. And the owner of the studio asked one of the other teachers who teach Hot 26 there if they know anybody else who teaches Hot 26 and they could possibly fill in on short notice. And one of the other teachers, Stevie, gave the owner of the studio my name. And she phoned me and she said, I mean, I'd never met her. I'd never been into Yoga Spirit. I hadn't set foot in there. She said to me, I don't know you, but I need somebody to teach in half an hour. Can you be there? So I said, yes, absolutely. And I arrived and I taught Hot 26. And we'll talk about that next week. I taught Hot 26 and it went very well. And so it wasn't long before they put me on the schedule there again, teaching Hot 26. Okay. So now I'm kind of stuck because as much as I enjoy teaching Hot 26, it's not what I want to be teaching. I want to be teaching more Vinyasa. So what do you do? So what I did was I taught Hot 26 at a couple of more studios as well that asked me to fill in for them. And after a good couple of months of teaching Hot 26, I said to the owners of the studio, I'm only going to teach Hot 26 if you give me one Vinyasa session per week, which they did, luckily for me. So that is how I slowly transitioned from teaching Hot 26 to Vinyasa. And then slowly my Vinyasa following built up, and eventually, I mean, most of what I teach is now Vinyasa. I teach maybe 1 or 2 Hot 26 classes a week. That's it. Whereas before I was teaching, every class I did was Hot 26. So it's quite difficult to just walk in and say, hi, I teach Vinyasa. Can I get a job? The market is flooded with yoga teachers, and most people teach Vinyasa, obviously. Okay. Ashtanga is a separate thing. My personal opinion is, Ashtanga is not offered at a lot of the studios. And my personal opinion is you can't teach Ashtanga unless you are practicing it. It's quite an involved practice. And I don't believe that you should be teaching it, my personal opinion, unless you practice it yourself. Okay, so I'm not going to teach Ashtanga, even though I was qualified to do that. It's not something that I want to delve into. I think you need to be practicing it yourself. It's a very strong practice, and you really need to know what you're doing. Okay, so that's how I got my job. Another way that you guys could approach studios, which they do a lot of, is you could approach them to be an assistant. In other words, you assist for signing people into classes. You assist with taking payments or whatever else needs to be done. And in return, they offer you free yoga classes, or you can get paid. Okay, you can choose. But the advantage is that you get to know the studio, and the studio owners get to know you. You get to know the formula of the studio, because remember I told you last week that each studio has a different formula. So you get to know the formula of the studio, and you get to decide whether what you're saying is resonating well with you or not. And then you can decide whether you want to actually maybe start teaching there. And sometimes that takes a while. And probably what will happen is a teacher will be sick, and the owner of the studio will say to you as the assistant, can you fill in? Can you sub last minute? If they can't find anybody else, and possibly that's how you would get in your foot in the door there. So that's another way of doing it, is just to assist at the studios. The problem is if the studio doesn't resonate with you and you're not comfortable with the teaching or whatever the case may be, you might have to then go and work at another studio, and hopefully you don't end up working at like a whole lot, because that doesn't really work too well. You want to just find something that resonates with you and stay there, because that is how the studio owners get to know you, and that is how you will hopefully eventually get a job. Okay. I told you last week that each studio has its own formula. So the problem with that is if you get taught to teach Vinyasa, that's all good and well. But when you arrive at a studio and they want you to teach there, the owners of the studio like you to stick to their formula. Because why? Because it's their business, and their business is built on that formula of teaching, whatever it may be. So, for example, Power Vinyasa at a yoga studio in town, for example, might be a lot quicker than what is expected of a power yoga class that you teach somewhere else. There can be a subtle difference. One yoga studio might encourage you to use Sanskrit in your teaching, and another yoga studio will tell you to leave it out completely. So it's quite tricky, because you walk out of the teacher training course knowing how to teach Vinyasa. That's fantastic. But can you adapt your teaching to whatever the formula of the studio is? And that is something that you guys will have to learn as you go along. Because if you don't adjust to the formula of the studio, most of the time, you're not going to have a job for very long. Okay, because 2 reasons. First of all, because the studio owners want you to do what is expected of you. And second of all, the people that come to those yoga studios are expecting that same type of formula. So if you arrive and you're offering something completely different, it might backfire. You might not get enough people in your classes. You won't get enough of a following. Or it's going to be so completely different that everybody loves it. But most of the time, the people that are coming to the studio know what to expect. They'll be coming there for a long time, and they expect the same type of flow classes. Okay, so Yoga Spirit and Yoga Zone, they because it's a flow class, we have to keep the idea of a flow. In other words, the teachers don't like it if we stop and do too many peak poses, if we break the flow. The formula at both of those studios is it's a flow class, you flow, which is basically one breath, one movement, and you have to stick to that formula. Okay. You also may have another dilemma, and this is something that I've noticed, is that at one studio, you have practitioners who are very, very strong. At another studio that you're teaching at, you have practitioners that aren't so strong. You might get a lot of foreigners that you don't know they practice at all. So it's quite tricky. I sequence one sequence for the whole week. I do it on a Sunday, and I teach that same sequence the whole week. Okay, and I'll explain why in a couple of seconds as well. I teach the same sequence the whole week. I, at a studio which have stronger practitioners, need to maybe up level that sequence a little and add in a few more difficult poses, because I know the practitioners are strong. When I arrive at the other studio that I'm teaching at, where I know the practitioners are not so strong, and there's foreigners and there's people that I have not got no clue about how their practice is, I have to then adjust my sequence and make it a little bit easier. And possibly at that studio as well, a little bit slower than how I'm teaching at the other studio. Okay, so you have to try, and there's a lot of fiddling with your sequences. Just because you've got a sequence in mind does not mean that is how it's taught for the whole week. You may have to adjust and think on your feet. You may have to take some poses out. You may have to add other poses in. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is that there's no such thing as having one formula that is going to work for every studio. You might need to adjust it, and you guys need to be able to think on your feet and be able to do that. Sometimes I arrive at one of my regular classes, and for some reason, there's a whole host of beginners that suddenly arrive. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, my sequence that I've got planned is very strong. So before I'm even going into the class, I'm thinking, okay, quickly, how can I change it? How can I make it a little bit easier? Because I have got too many beginners in this class to make it as strong as I wanted to make it. And how do I know that they're beginners? Because I stand at the front desk and I meet everybody that comes in, and the newbies obviously introduce themselves. So if I arrive to teach a class, I know whether I have got my regulars and I know that they are strong and I can do what I want to do, or I might arrive and go, oh my gosh, this is not going to work, because these beginners are not going to handle what I've got planned. So I have to quickly try and think, okay, can I take some of the poses out? Can I make that a little bit easier? If I have a difficult transition that I want people to maybe work on, can I change it and make it a little bit easier? So you have to be able to think on your feet as well. Okay. I told you I teach one sequence a week. The reason for that is very simple, because sequencing is not always that easy. If you guys have done any sequencing, I don't know if you have, but it's quite difficult to get a whole sequence, to put it together and to make it almost perfect, okay, like you want to teach it. So once I have that sequence, I'm not going to go and change it during the week, because that will just confuse my mind completely. So I have the same sequence that I teach the whole week, because that's easier for me. I know what I'm doing. And also, if you have people that are regular practitioners, they're going to come and do your sequence a couple of times. And that is actually a good thing, because they can work deeper into whatever you have chosen to give them to work into. And when they arrive for a second or a third time, they have a better idea of where they're going, because they've done your sequence before. And so they can actually allow their mind to switch off. They don't have to think about it so much, because they have an idea of where we're going. Okay, a little bit of advice. So my advice to you is, don't chop and change your sequences too often. If you want to keep that sequence for 2 weeks, fantastic. Even that's also, I probably would recommend that. Jason Crandall, I think, teaches the same sequence for a month. He does not change his sequence. He teaches the same sequence for a month. So people that are coming to his classes know what they're getting. And so they slowly, if he's working on Bakasana or Crow, whatever, they slowly work up to that peak pose with him. And he keeps his sequences for a month. He doesn't chop and change them either. So you will have to decide if that's what you want to do. Obviously, if you have your own studio, you can do, you have a bit of free reign to do whatever more what you want to do. But if you're teaching at the studios, you need to just be mindful of how your sequence works, who's arriving to take your classes. Can you adjust the sequence to suit your beginners? And if you can't, are there modifications that you can give instead? Okay, because you always need to have in the back of your mind as well, what can I give as modifications for beginners that can make it a little bit more accessible for them? Okay, and I'll give you a few examples in a few moments. Okay. Before COVID, we used to do adjusting in Vinyasa classes. We don't do that anymore at the moment because you're not allowed to touch people, which is unfortunate. So in a Vinyasa class, not only are you teaching and you organizing your music and you're remembering your sequence and you're watching what your students are doing and you're verbally cueing, you are also physically adjusting. So there's a lot going on. Okay, so if you're going to teach Vinyasa, you must be prepared to take all of that on. And obviously, the more that you do it, the easier it gets. If you decide to start teaching Vinyasa, my advice to you is keep your sequences as simple as possible. I would suggest starting with a couple of rounds of sun salutations A and B, because that always works to get the body nice and warm and prepared for what's coming next. And then from there, work around a very, very simple sequence, one that you, first of all, are not going to forget, and one that is accessible to whoever's in your class. And they just get a chance to maybe get a feel for how you teach, whether they resonate with you and all that kind of thing. Okay. You will get people that will come to your classes and will hate them. Okay. Don't take it personally. Not everybody is going to like your style of teaching, and that is just one of those things. Don't take it personally. I had a lady who came to my Vinyasa classes and walked out after every single one and told everybody in the change room how much she hated it. Why she kept coming back, I don't know, but she did, each and every class. And I was still relatively new. And it used to disrupt my whole energy because I knew as soon as I had her in the class, she would start, if the heater was on, she'd start fanning herself in the front, telling me it's too hot, and all sorts of stupid things. Okay, and I don't know why she kept coming back. Anyway, she disrupted my energy so much that eventually I plucked up the courage to tell her to please, if she wasn't enjoying my classes, to not come back. Because for me, it was making me not teach well and properly, if you understand what I'm saying, because she just threw me off completely, until eventually I thought I have to say something. So I asked her to please not come back to my classes, which she didn't for a long, long, long time. And now she's back. Can you believe it? But with a whole different view, a whole different aura, a whole different, I don't know what you want to call it, respect, I don't know. And we get on absolutely perfectly now. But so in the beginning, as a new teacher, it might be difficult for you to deal with people that come to your classes and moan about them or whatever. It takes a bit of strength of character to tell them not to come to your class. And I wouldn't say you do that for every single person that doesn't like your class, because it might be just that day that they don't like it. But if you have somebody that's perpetually coming to your class and is moaning or doesn't seem to be enjoying it, see if you can eventually build up to a stage where you can ask them politely not to come, because it throws off your teaching. It's terrible. Okay. Another thing that can disrupt you from Vinyasa classes, and you'll see a lot of this, is people that arrive in your class and they don't listen to a word of what you are teaching. They do their own sequence completely. And please believe me, that happens. It is unreal that you can have people that arrive to do your class and then go off on a tangent and do their own thing completely. The other day I had a young girl right at the front. That means everybody can see her, who just kept doing handstands and against the mirror practically the whole class. Unfortunately, I didn't catch her afterwards because she left too quickly. But the next time she comes back to my class, I know who she is now. I'm going to politely ask her to, number one, either stick to the sequence Or number two, if she's going to do her own thing, to please go and do it in the back where nobody can see her. Because it was very distracting for everybody that was in class, and it was distracting once again for me as a teacher. And as a teacher, you have a job to do. You have to present a class that is fluid, that people are going to enjoy, that is comfortable, that is good. That is your job. And if you have people that are distracting you from that, you're not doing your job as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so these are just little tips that I'm giving you as to what can happen out there. Don't think that it's all just walking in, teaching, and walking out. There's a lot of stuff that sometimes can go with it. Okay, so be prepared and don't take anything personally, please. Okay, everything that you teach has to get filtered through whatever that person has arrived with in your class. They might have had a terrible day at work. They might be having all sorts of other issues. And your teaching has to get filtered through all of that, whatever they have arrived with. Because people do arrive with issues. That is one of the things that they come to yoga for, is to clear their minds and get rid of whatever's worrying them or bugging them or frustrated them for the day. So don't take it personally. Okay, not everybody is going to like what you do. That's absolutely fine. Okay, right. I wanted to just talk a little bit about how you go about sequencing. For me, I will look on Instagram, or I'll have a look at some yoga videos or whatever, and I'll see a pose, and I'll think, oh wow, okay, that's different. I'm going to try and bring that into my sequence, and then I'll get onto my mat and I'll just try and flow it out and see how can I bring that in. Where can I start before that little move or that pose to get me into the pose, and then what can I do after that to get me out of it and make it interesting? Okay. Or I might be working on a transition. I might see a transition that I want to work into, which is different. And then I will think, okay, what do I need to sequence around that transition? So by the time that we come to do it, everybody is ready and prepared and can make the transition. Okay. So it's not just about, sometimes it's not just about the poses. Sometimes the transitions are what is fun and different. That is how I see it anyway. Okay. I try and bring in something a little different in every single one of my classes, even if it's just one thing that's different. That is how I try and differentiate my classes from everybody else's. So people know, and they have a good, some people have good giggle about it, because sometimes I might throw in something that's quite difficult and gives them a little bit of a challenge. But people know when they come to my classes, they're probably going to get something that's a little bit different. And that's the way I like to teach. I think it's great because, as I said, we've only got a certain number of poses that we can teach, but I try and bring in something that gives them a little bit of a challenge, makes them think, or maybe just a different transition that they haven't done before. And I'll give you an example, just to make the class a little bit more spicy and a little bit more interesting. Okay, otherwise you're basically doing the same as everybody else. Okay, wonder if I shouldn't show you that now. Okay, so I'm going to show you just one transition that I looked at. I'm going to show you the transition, and then I'm going to tell you, sort of give you advice as to the kind of things that you need to think about if you're bringing in a transition like that. Okay, so this is it. So the transition was from fallen triangle to step your back leg over the front one, and then to come into standing splits. Okay, doesn't look too difficult. But think about what you have to work on from here to get people to be able to step forward, balancing on one hand, and get into a different posture. Okay. First of all, I need to have quite a bit of fallen triangle, okay, in my practice so that people can get comfortable with this shape first. Second of all, I need to have progressive loading, because we're going to go from downward facing dogs, which is on two hands, and for that particular transition and for that pose, I need people on one arm. Okay, progressive loading. So from two hands to one hand. What other poses can I bring in that are on one hand? I can bring in side plank. Side plank is on one hand. So I will think about other poses that I need to get people ready to move into that transition. If that makes sense. Is that making sense, guys? Okay. Let me just, okay, so, and then I will also have to think, okay, now, one-handed arm balance or arm poses are difficult for a lot of people. There's some people that can't do things on one arm. So now, how do I make that transition accessible for those people? Because I don't want to leave them out. We're going into another pose from where we were. So they can't be left out. They have to be able to get there so that they can flow with the rest of the class. So what can I do? How can I give a modification so that they can also do it? Okay, so what I did was I told people that they can do it with the one hand down. Okay, because you can. It doesn't have to be this one arm up. This is the more difficult one, more difficult version. So I gave the modification that people could do it with one hand on the floor. They can still step forward and come into their standing splits. Okay, which means I don't leave people out that can't do things on one arm. All right, so this is how you need to think when you're sequencing a class. Okay, so whether it's a pose or a transition or whatever you're working into, don't think that because you've chosen something, everybody in your class is going to be able to do it. A lot of people can't. So, and if it's something that you think, I thought that was quite tricky, how can I change it? What can I do to make it accessible for people in the class and make it fun? I mean, that was quite a different transition, and it was fun, and a lot of people got it, and it was great, and it worked well. And I use it quite often actually now. But you need to try and think how you can make it accessible to everybody in your class. Okay. I'll give you another, for example, side plank. I'm sure you must know this. For a lot of people, they can't do this. They cannot hold the side plank. So you tell them to lower the bottom shin down. Okay. It just takes a weight off that one-handed balance. Right. So it's just simple modifications that you can bring in that will just make it accessible to the people who are in your classes. Okay. I want to look at some of the transitions that we went through last week, and then I'm going to give you guys a little exercise, a little bit of brain work that you need to just think about, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, so I'm just going to get my PowerPoint. I have to remember how to do this now. Oh, so share screen. Hang on, guys. Sorry, I need to remember how to do this. Okay, your screen sharing. Okay. Okay, can you guys see that? Can you guys see that? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I just want to have a look at a couple of these transitions because we went through them so quickly last week. All right. So this is a little pose called Skandasana, which is like a side lunge. Okay. It's quite fun when you are teaching a Vinyasa class to change direction and have people doing things towards the one side of the mat and the other side of the mat, and maybe getting them to face the back of the mat. It just makes it a little bit more fun. So this is one of the transitions that you can use to change direction, because, and I'll show you in a few moments. You can move from the front of the mat to the back of the mat using this little transition. Okay, and I'll show you in a few moments. So think about that, and I'll show you all of this just now. Okay. Curtsy squat, hang on. This one I spoke about as well, and I'll show you how you can change legs. So you can work from working on the right side of your body to working on the left side of your body, and I'll show you that as well. So I'm going to show you some examples of how we do this, okay, as we move along. I'll show you Prasarita. I'll show you what you can do from Prasarita, how you can change direction on the mat. And I'll show you a fun little transition from Prasarita, which is quite different too, okay? Sorry, guys, I can't seem to. 5-pointed star, we did it in our flow last week. I'm going to show you what you can do from there, okay? Horse pose, well, you basically do star horse, is quite a common move. Reverse warrior, you can move to a whole lot of different things. You can move to a low lunge, you can do extended side angle, you can go to Prasarita, you can go to half moon. Okay, so that's quite a popular pose that's used as a transition to move into other poses. Reverse triangle is similar. Most commonly, it's for reverse triangle to triangle or reverse triangle to half moon. Those are the two most common transitions you will see in a yoga class. Okay. Figure 4 stretch, you can change legs and I'll show you how. Moving from there, I'll show you all of these now. Okay, let me stop the sharing now. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. Okay, so if I am working from the front of the mat, I'm just going to change legs, and I want to move towards the back, I can do from a low lunge, for example, I can do Skandasana to the back. I can do Skandasana to the front, but then I can do a low lunge to the back of the mat, and I've changed direction completely, and then flow on the other side, maybe facing the back of the mat. Okay. From curtsy squats, sometimes we go from chair most of the time to curtsy squat. I can do chair again and step the other leg back for curtsy squat, and now on the other side. So I've changed my legs. Okay, simple transition, but you can change your legs by doing that. Okay, prasarita, I can do a halfway lift, then I can either do a low lunge front of the mat, or I can do low lunge back of the mat. Okay, so I can change direction using that as well. I'm going to show you a funnel transition, which we did last week. So from prasarita, I got people to come into boat pose, and I'll show you how, because it's quite different. So from here, I told people to take one hand and place it next to the front foot, reach the other arm forward, turn the front toes to face forward and come into what looks like a warrior 2 almost, and then to kick their one leg underneath the other armpit and sit down and arrive in boat pose. Okay, so that was something that was different that I added in the other day, because most of the time you come from chair all the way down to the sitting bones to boat pose. Okay, which is fine, but we do so much of that I decided to try and think of a different way to get into boat pose, and that's the one thing that I found. Okay, figure 4. I'll show you figure 4. So from your figure 4 stretch, you can do a cross-legged forward fold, and then when you step back, you can change your legs around. So you've changed the way that you're moving as well. So you can change from right leg to left leg. Okay. Trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, no, reverse warrior and all of that I'm not going to show you because that's so easy. That just makes perfect sense, I'm sure. Okay. So basically, think about how you can sequence to get people to move in different directions on your mat, to face the front, to face the back, to just be a little bit creative. Okay. It's all good and well, but you also don't want your sequences to be too creative. So I try and keep, as I said, I'll try and add one element of something different, but then I'll try and keep the rest of the flow quite straightforward, because I don't want to throw in 10 different things because it's going to make it too complicated. Okay, so I'll just throw in one thing that's a little bit different and get people to just work on that. Right. We talked about sequencing to a peak pose. So what I would like you guys to do, and I'm sure this is going to be super easy for you, but we're going to do this little exercise. Does everybody know dancer's pose? Is there anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about? Okay, everybody know. Okay, just going to check the other screen. Okay, all right. So I want you guys to sit and think for a couple of minutes. What poses can I do that will mimic or look like or resemble or give me the same shape or whatever to prepare me for dancer's pose? And that doesn't have to be standing. It can be kneeling, it can be lying down, it can be upside down, whatever you like. But I want each of you to try and give me at least two poses that you can think of that can mimic or that can resemble and dancer's pose, so that by the time we get to dances, your body's prepared to go there. Okay, does that make sense? Right, okay, so that is your exercise. We'll look at another one just now. I'll give you about 5 minutes, and then we'll go through it one at a time. Okay, try and be maybe a little bit creative. Try and think out the box. Is there something different I can do? Just give it a little bit of thought. Think about all the actions that are required for the dancer's pose, and then try and get some poses to mimic that. Okay, you've got 5 minutes, guys. So it might mean that you have to get up and move. Or not, guys. But it's a good idea to feel it out. So you might want to move instead of just sitting and writing things down. Good. Yes, Matt. Good. Feel it out and see what else you can think of that can mimic that or guide you there or resemble it or open up the parts of the body that need to be prepared. And it's a simple peak pose and it's a fun one to teach. So there's lots of things that you can do along the way. Okay, you have about another minute or so. Let me just let my dog in. Come on, come sit, come. Sit, come. Come, sit, come. Sit, stay. Keep your sit, Fanny. No, go sit there. Okay, are you guys ready? Not difficult, I'm sure. Okay, I'm just going to go as I see my screen. So we're just going to go, I'm just going to go from left to right. So Ari, you first. Can you
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. Hi. So I've got a downward dog with a leg grab.
Yes, okay.
Downward dog and then reaching back, grabbing your leg. Sorry, I can't demonstrate because I have an injury.
No, that's fine.
Also a low lunge, reaching back, grabbing the leg, and then I also had a supine stretch.
Yes.
Lying down, similar sort of shape, but lying down.
Good.
Cactus arm, and then grab the leg.
Excellent. Awesome. Good. Fantastic. Okay, good. Is it Clara or Clara? Clara. Hi.
Hi. I quite like the boat pose.
Yes.
The bow pose.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Good. And then just really kind of feeling out that bend in the leg. So
yes.
kind of like getting up, getting down, maybe kind of experiment with pushing your heel towards your bum.
Good. And what poses could I do that in? Where could I get people to hold or whatever, and then get people to pull their heel to their bum? Maybe not using their hands, but just moving. Which pose can I do that in, for example?
By the end of maybe the chaturanga, you can stay on the floor and then fold.
Yes, good. You mean on your tummy? You mean on your belly?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You could also do it in downward facing dog. You could get them. I'll show you. You could get them to do this. You could get them to bend the knee and then straighten and bend. So get the idea of getting that heel towards your bum. You can also do it in standing splits if you wanted to. Squeeze it in, straighten it, squeeze it in. Okay, so good. Yes, because that's the right activation that you wanted. Excellent. Good.
And then the second one is a little bit similar to Aries, but I was thinking just from tabletop and just kind of recreating it.
Very nice. Yes. Very nice. Yes. Good. Do you guys know tiger pose? No. Okay, I'm going to show you because that's basically what you're saying. Okay, so tiger pose is kneeling, and it's just that you don't take the same hand back. You take the opposite hand back, grab the foot, kick the foot up, and that's a good one to mimic your dancer's pose. So good thinking. Awesome. Yes, I like that. Good. Hold on a sec. I just need to see this chat here. I have to reconnect. Oh, okay, Annalise. That's fine. Good. Okay, that's excellent. All right, Sinead.
Clara had one of mine.
That's okay. They're the same. That's okay. I don't mind.
So I said all fours with like a scorpion tail and a grab.
Yes, good.
I sort of doing something with maybe like the block, like bolstering you up like this, like on your tummy, and then grabbing back. So not as hectic as Pigeon.
Yes,
good.
Sort of, awesome.
So it's more like in the beginning.
Okay, good. Yes, because you're stretching the quad as well, which you need when you start to take that leg back. Good. Excellent. Good. Okay. Amy?
Hello. I think something like you go from pigeon into mermaid pose. So that stretching of the quads and also that lower back bend, I think could be quite important.
Good. Yes, because don't forget there is a back bend. So that's good to remember. Yeah, brilliant.
And then also I think something like wheel, like if you go towards the end of the sequence, maybe also just to warm up your back and to also strengthen your legs, to do something like wheel.
Good. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Wheel. The only thing I could possibly why I wouldn't do that is because wheel is normally done right at the end of yoga class because it's quite a strong pose. Not that you couldn't do it, but normally the big pose, your back bends, normally the ones where you have to come down to the floor, like your bridge and your Vinyasa are done right at the end. It's like part of your closing sequence. But you could do flip your dog, or you could do you guys know what flip your dog is? No. Okay. Okay, good. Because what you're saying, okay, I'll show you. So flip your dog, which is like this, and then you come into a bit of an Vinyasa variation. Okay, unfortunately, it's just on one arm, but that's okay. All right, so that you could bring in. So good, yes, like an Vinyasa variation. That's good because you're getting the back bend, you're getting the strengthening of the legs. That's good. That's very good. Awesome. Okay, was that it? Okay, Elaine.
All right, so I went for low lunge with quad stretch, and then I don't know what to call it, but it's like your tiger, but on your stomach. So with a quad stretch, and then into a reverse Nordic curl, and then a low lunge again with a back bend, and then step into dances.
Good, very nice. Good, awesome. Yes, very good. Okay, D. I'm sure you guys are going to have quite a few of the same, but that's okay.
Okay, so I went into a three-legged downward dog.
Yes.
And then I low lunge straight through with the scorpion tail. And then I stepped straight up into Tadasana and went into tree, and then from tree, keeping on the one leg, into dances.
Good. Okay, awesome. Yes. Okay, that's good, because don't forget, which a lot of you guys haven't really mentioned. Wait, I'll tell you at the end, just in case you guys have mentioned it. Okay, I'm going to tell you at the end. Okay, good. Just I'll remember. All right, Dee, that's great. Belinda?
Okay, so I had bow pose on the floor, and then the push up into low lunge, and then step into one-legged Tadasana, and then pendulum into dances.
Good, awesome, brilliant, nice. Okay, Matt?
So I had also the three-legged dog with bent knee and possibly reaching back. And then maybe the same as Amy was, I had a bridge pose, but one leg up. So you said that might be towards more the end of the class, not before.
Bridge is not as hectic as full wheel. It's a little bit easier. So you could bring that in. You could take them down to the floor and do that. That would be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Okay, awesome. Ruan.
I also had mermaid with the quad stretch and some other ones, but I thought about like in the beginning of the class when you're like warming up, you could still do stuff like cobra, locust, just basic back bends, and then work up and do the hamstring stuff as well. And then I also had the tree variation with taking the quad, the leg back.
Okay, can you show me that?
Well, basically, like everybody else, so in dancer, you would obviously take your leg back.
Yes.
So you can basically just do this in the beginning just to get the forward motion.
Okay,
before you actually do the back bend. So that's just getting used to the tilting.
Awesome. Yes, very good. Very good. Okay, I like that. Awesome. Okay, good. Okay, Nicole.
Hi, so I thought cobra, cobra and then bow, like whilst on the ground. And then when in your standing position, warrior 3, just for that balancing and sort of like pushing forward and then go into dances from there.
Awesome. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned something like warrior 3, because don't forget, guys, and this is what I was going to tell you, it's also a balance on one leg. So somewhere along the line, it might be a good idea to bring in balancing on one leg, even if it's just aeroplane or warrior 3, just so that people can start to get that balance. Okay, so that's good. That's good. Well done. Okay, Annalise, I think you're the last one.
Okay, so I had basically a twisted pigeon, as well as I actually wrote down quite a bit that you can do to like warm up for this, or to like bring you to this pose. It's like Nordic curls with a twist. I've got half moon with a quad stretch, and also then my first two I wrote down was mermaid and warrior 3.
Good, awesome. Okay, guys, I'm impressed. Well done. Well done. That's brilliant. In actual fact, I taught dances this week as the peak pose. So I brought in basically most of what you guys had mentioned. I did even bring in half moon with Chapasana or sugarcane pose. I don't know if you know what that is. That's half moon and then bending the top leg and reaching back and holding your ankle so that you're getting that same feel. So I also brought that in. I also did quite a bit of back bending. We did cobra, we did locust, a lot of balancing on one leg. I also brought this in. I'll just show you something a little different. Like what I think it was Ruan. Yes, Ruan. Okay. Like you said, I got people we did a wind removing pose. Okay. And then I got people to take the leg back and hold their foot with both of their hands. Okay. Then I got them to tilt forward and lift the leg up and hold it there. Okay. So that was one of the preparation poses that I used because it mimics your dances. It gets people to feel what it feels like, as Ruan said, to tilt the body forward and have the leg kicking up behind you. Okay, so brilliant. You guys got everything basically nailed. And so that's what I taught this week. And it was fun. And then when I get them to dances, we hold it for a long time. We hold it for about 30 seconds or more, maybe even a minute. Okay, and I tell them it's your peak pose, so we're going to be here for a good few breaths. And it's great because even though it's an easy peak pose, to get people to hold it for a minute is a challenge. And if they can do it, they feel fantastic. And if they can't, it doesn't matter. You fall out, you come back in, have a little bit of fun with it, be playful with it. But that's how I make it a little bit more challenging, or I made it a little bit more challenging this week. Okay, even though it's an easy peak pose, and it's a nice one because a lot of people can do it. So it's fun. And you don't have to stop and demonstrate. You're basically demonstrating, but they're doing it with you at the same time. Okay. All right, guys. I didn't think this was going to be very long, and it's not going to be very long. We're probably going to be here for another couple of minutes only. What I wanted to say to you is the best advice that I can give you if you're going to go and be a teacher, and this doesn't matter what kind of yoga you're teaching, whether it be Hot 26, Vinyasa, whatever you are doing, is to just be yourself and be authentic, because that comes across in your teaching. Okay. Don't try, and if you hear a teacher talking in a specific way or whatever, don't try and mimic that unless it resonates with you and it comes from inside of you. Just be yourself, be authentic, and I promise you that will come through in your teaching, and that is what will keep people coming back to your classes. I can hear when a teacher is just saying something because she's heard someone else say it, and I can hear that it's not coming from somewhere inside her. It's not something that's resonated with her. It's just something that she's heard somebody else say. So try and just be authentic and try and teach with whatever resonates with you, because that is what will make you a good teacher. Okay, guys, does that make sense? Okay. Any questions? No? Okay. No? Okay. Is anybody interested in going out and teaching Vinyasa, by the way? Sort of? Okay, good. All right. Good. Okay, awesome. Okay, Matt. Okay, good. All right. So hopefully this has given you a little bit of insight, guys. I hope that it's been helpful, and I hope that you have an idea of what you need to do when you do get out there and you start teaching. It's tricky in the beginning, so start off simple, and then the more you do it, the more confident you get, the easier it'll be, obviously. Okay. I will see you next week for completely different, Hot 26. It will be an hour practice and an hour theory. So be prepared to move next week. Okay. All right, guys. Have a lovely afternoon. We're going to finish early today, and you can go and Belinda's keen. Great. You can go and have the rest of the afternoon off. Okay. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next week. Okay. Bye.
Thank you, Bev. Have a good afternoon.
Pleasure. I will. You too. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.